Hello everyone and welcome to this holy journey of fire, freeze and shock that is going to make you question, do you even pray, bro? That's right, today we take a look at the tri-elemental Zealer in this mini playthrough. So you may remember Zeal if you watched my last Paladin mini playthrough. It was my main melee skill of choice in the beginning, and it is going to be pretty much the same here, except no hammers would be involved later on. Today we're going to be going full melee. For that I found an eth sword with some attack rating. If you do not know, ethereal weapons do more damage than regular ones, so I kept it for now. Also, it's not really beneficial selling them as they sell for less than usual items. With my new eth friend though, I got to level 2 and put a point into sacrifice, which will serve as a prereq to zeal and give me more damage and attack rating at the cost of some life. Speaking of which, I got dexterity instead of vitality as well, since attack rating is more important to me this early on. Plus, it's not like the Paladin needs help while clearing the den like the Fishy Mancer. He can clear out the den pretty fast with some hack and slash melee justice. The skill point I got from Akara I put into the infamous aura of might, since it is a great early game offensive aura and also serves as a prereq for my later ones. With all that damage, I took down Blood Raven without much trouble. Of course, I don't have any AoE at this point, so I was getting surrounded by mobs, but who needs to worry when you've got Blood Raven's magical lightning taking care of that anyways. That wouldn't be a problem for long since I got to level 6 in the underground, and that's always a great point for melee characters. It lets you use strangling gas potions, which are a great source of area of effect damage, and it also gave me my skill aura of holy fire. To prepare for it, I had put points into resist fire through levels 3 to 5, so it did pretty decent fire damage now at level 6. As for my weapon, I was just using a basic scepter with a chipped emerald and sapphire for added cold and poison elemental damage. That may change soon, since my main source of damage will be coming from my aura, which will increase as I put all my skill points into it from now on, except for at level 10, 11 and 12. At level 10 I put a point into smite, which is a prereq for charge. I saved the skill point at level 11. Before getting to level 12, I got a great weapon switch in the form of a scimitar with 10% increased attack speed. This is pretty much the fastest attacking weapon I can get at this moment of the game, and that will increase my DPS as of now. At level 12 I got a huge buff to my character. This is where I picked up the skills of zeal and charge, the latter of which you can see me using here. Once selected, I press left shift and click around, and I use it to move around faster. Zeal, as you may imagine, is going to be my main skill of choice from now on, since it allows me to hit multiple monsters at once uninterrupted, and it also increases attack rating. It doesn't do much in the ways of increasing my damage, so I will just stick with 1 point invested in it, and instead level up my aura holy fire for damage. With that, I completed my countess farming and built the obligatory stealth rune word, 25 faster run walk, 25 faster hit recovery, and 6 dexterity, which increases my AR and block chance, and also some decent poison res for the upcoming Andariel fight. I also built my guy a steel. The last time I built this was on my assassin, I think, but this helps this guy since it gives me 25% increased attack speed. Using this handy dandy comparison chart that I prepared for my last mini playthrough of the Paladin, I think, you can see the difference steel makes as compared to a 10% increased attack speed scimitar that I was using before. It also has other helpful mods like 2 mana after each kill, which literally compensates for Zeal's entire mana cost, and 50% chance to open wounds, which is huge for a melee character since it is an excellent source of passive damage which racks up over time, especially against bosses. Speaking of which, it was time for our first boss fight of Andariel. This fight was pretty straightforward, even being a melee character, since you do fire damage. Andariel is notorious for melting under fire, and thus using that to your advantage, taking her out is no problem. She dropped me some pretty decent items too, like this scepter with a lot of skills which will sell for a lot of gold, and I'll keep it for trading later, and this ring with 10 FCR, dual res, and half freeze duration. Pretty GG for Act 1 normal. For Act 2 normal, I got myself a desert mercenary since they're awesome, and I gave him the dragon Chang which I had found from the Countess. Other than that, just having light mana potions is a joy since you can charge uninterrupted with their higher mana regen. Maggot Lair is fun too since being a melee character, you can kill everything here pretty easily. Also, it contains a lot of beetles, which are nice to kill since these give you a lot of experience. Fangskin fight can be scary though, since he hits like a truck with his lightning bolts and charge attack, and therefore having rejuves can come in handy in the Snake Temple. Also, these came in handy in the Arcane, where I had a lot of close encounters with death, courtesy of Broomstick Men and the fire damage they deal. From here, I like to do the Radamant quest before Duriel. In his lair, I reached level 18 and got a point in Vigor. This isn't necessarily a part of the build, I just like it because you get to run fast and it's just awesome. A PSA while using Vigor though is I would recommend you bind it close to your charge hotkey. Like I have Zeal and Holy Fire on my Z and X hotkey, which are right next to each other, and similarly I keep Charge and Vigor on C and V, which are next to each other as well. This way I always select them in their combination, and it is less likely for me to get caught using Zeal with Vigor and doing no damage since all my damage comes from Holy Fire. With all that Holy Fire damage, I went to fight Duriel. As always, I overestimated how long it will actually take me to kill this dude, and thus stuffed me and me Merc here with too many thawing potions, but hey, no harm done. This fight did end quicker and my mercenary seemed to be bugged since he did not take any damage at all. Unfortunately, my luck was probably bugged as well since all the drops from Duriel were utter trash. On to the next one, I guess. Now Act 3 is generally pretty boring too, right? But this time I had an interesting entry to the Flare Jungle, as it put me straight into the Gidbin directly from the Great Marsh. I know it may not sound interesting to a lot of people, but I have never seen this before. Also, my Zealer was facing monsters he had never seen before, these pesky flares and the shamans, which both hurt a lot with physical and fire damage. I had found some choking gas potions earlier, which were coming in handy as my only source of spread damage. A helmet with 2 Ral runes definitely helps against the shamans, and especially in the dungeon where you have to fight one at level 3. He is immune to fire though, which is kind of foreshadowing as to where fire damage goes from nuking everything to now you have to stand aside and have your Merc kill him. Let's see if this is a sign of things to come soon. Kurast Bazaar and Serena runs suggest otherwise though, at least for the time being. Killing her is not too hard and she is a consistent spawn in the Ruined Temple, which I'd like to farm for a bit till I get to level 24. Doing her quest also gives you a book of stats, which you can get from Alcor. That's all fine and dandy unless this happens and you literally can't escape from him. Yeah, well, that was fun. So, anywho, getting to around level 24 allows me to use a staff of teleportation that I bought from Ormus at around level 23, and I made my way to Trav from here. I reached 24 in the sewers on my way, and I put a point at that level into Holy Shield. This was my first time using the skill since someone asked me to do so in the last Paladin mini playthrough, since it increased my block chance and also my block rate. Travinkle was troublesome even after that defense buff, since Hydras don't do my mercenary any favors, and the amp damage from one of the council members makes their attacks kinda scary. Still, my mercenary did a fantastic job here. I think he took out one of the council members, which is always fire enchanted, and went at him while I cleaned up the other council members. It could have been a lot worse, boys, but we have retrieved the flail and it is time to enter the Durance where Mephisto awaits. Now this fight is legit scary. Mephisto is one of those bosses which has that one-hit KO power in normal because of his strong elemental type attacks like Charged Bolt and Frozen Orb. Due to this, I teleported in close quarters to him and started attacking to basically lure out mostly his poison cloud and physical attacks, which still hurt but aren't necessarily that scary. His poison was draining my mercenary though, but this strat overall did work for me and he went down. He drawed Milabrega's Rod, which could have been interesting since it gives +1 to Paladin skills, but it is rather slow, so I opted to sell it with the rest for gold. Act 4 continued the downward slope of fire damage's impact. All enemies were taking more time to die, and the best evidence is the Iswol fight. Although he is a super unique, in normal he doesn't really take this long to kill. This fight really had started to convince me that I had started falling back in terms of attack rating, and also my damage was letting me down. Upon reaching the chaos, my suspicions were confirmed. Infector and his group absolutely fried me without taking much of any damage from my attacks. Now, albeit I was playing a little sloppy here at first since I used Zeal with Holy Shield, I think, and in the rematch, with a little more focus and luck by getting an early Frost Nova proc, I was able to take him and his boys down. It helped that the mercenary stayed alive as well, since he is susceptible to fire damage, and him sticking around was surprising. Oh, if only that was the most surprising thing about this chaos. But no, boys, I died to Vizier. I didn't even know that was possible. I thought it was a bug at first, and then I realized that it was just me playing terrible since I forgot that he is fire immune and that I need my mercenary to take care of him. Oopsies. Well, good thing we're all done with the oopsies, so now this Diablo fight will be perfect. Right. Oh dear. Yeah, this was fun. Much like the Boazon with exploding arrows, it was around this time that this guy's damage output started to fall behind, and I think this is because with the increase in difficulty, enemies' fire resistance starts to increase and they become much more tanky and dangerous. Oh yeah, I died a few times in this fight too, by the way, but I mean, I died to Vizier, dude. Don't know what you were expecting at this point. Overall, this fight was a huge grind for me and my Paladin, but we persevered and in the end we got our reward in the form of a unique ring. A 15% magic find Nagel. Ah yes, classic Diablo 2. Makes you grind and die multiple times, and then hands you a 15 Nagel. Cool video game. Things only got worse in Act 5. I think it is partly due to the extra skills that I have invested in, like Vigor and Holy Shield, this early in the game, that my damage is also falling behind because I haven't been able to put those points into Holy Fire. That being said, I do not want to respec now since I plan to change setups in Nightmare anyways, and I am nearly there. The road to Nightmare though goes through the normal ancients. Now I couldn't kill these guys one by luring them in the corner since I had my mercenary with me, and the mercenary was a crucial part of this fight. I kid you not, I think he was doing equal, if not more damage than my Paladin was. So I made sure to keep him alive and went after Talik while he targeted Korlik. In retrospect, targeting Madoc would have been better since he was really annoying me by sniping me constantly, and killing him would have been faster than Talik, who has a lot of fire res. He himself was also whirlwinding to my displeasure, and Korlik turned out to be the first one to go since he got collaterally damaged with Talik with the zeal attack, but Talik followed suit. Finally, Madoc was not much trouble since he doesn't really have a lot of hit points and he does go down pretty quick. Next up was the throne. Now the first 3 waves were easy here. Well, the third wave's Bartok did end up killing me once with his lightning, somehow, but more or less they were easy and were all killable. Trouble started with the 4th wave and the PTSD of Pit Lords from the chaos set in. That and the fact that my attacks were just not doing that much damage to these guys made me pull them out. The only other character that I had to do that with? The Amazon, of course. If wave 4 was tough, I didn't even bother with wave 5. Dragged them straight out. Actually drag them in a wavy pattern, which makes sure that all of them follow you, and then I teleported back in. Back in and into the grindy, torturous nightmare of a fight that was normal Baal. Yeah, okay, this is not going to cut it. You can see it, I can see it, everyone else in the Illuminati watching you watch this video can see it, that this is just not going to be viable going forward. I will probably not even make it out of Blood more in Nightmare, and thus we needed to make some changes. Now unfortunately, Holy Freeze, which I plan to use in Nightmare, is a level 18 skill, and it won't be maxed till I am level 38. For that I decided to embrace the grind, and after killing Baal, I decided I will stay in normal, go after the bosses in pursuit of some good gear and some good levels, starting with the former. It starts off pretty easy since I needed to find the basic melee character items, and the best place to do that is normal Andariel. Now the best part about this is that I kill Andariel pretty much as fast as I can click buttons. In fact, getting to Andariel was slower than actually killing her. The obvious downside is that it can get pretty boring pretty fast, and I wish it was something I did along the way, but anyways, after about an hour I had found the 3 basic things I was looking for anyways. First was Hisaru's boots, which on their own are pretty good as well, giving me 20 faster run walk and 25 fire res. However, the main reason to get these is the next item, that being the Hisaru's belt. Again, on its own, this thing is not bad with 22 life and 22 cold res, but with both combined, you get attack rating per level bonus on the boots, which will solve my problem of not being able to hit monsters at large. Finally, the last item I farmed for was a weapon with crushing blow. This is mainly for bosses I'm farming and also others that I might encounter further in Nightmare. With a little bit of persistence, I was able to find Crush Flange, which is quite excellent since it provides 33% crushing blow, which is quite high. Using that, I jumped straight to running Mephisto and with just one reset found an excellent Mephisto normal map. Next useful unique I found from Mephisto was the unique studded leather Twitch throw, which I immediately twitched through on me. Ha 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 ho he ha. Anyways, this is great because it gives me increased block, dex, strength, and that increased attack speed, which is going to be very useful while farming and generally attacking. Next item is weird because of how interesting it is. Angelic's armor. You might not think much of it, but this can act as a substitute for the amulet for the 2-piece set bonus on the rings to give me that massive attack rating. Definitely something to consider, especially if I'm not able to find that amulet. As if I wasn't already spoiled for choices on armors, next I got Hawkmail. This provides me with Cannot Be Frozen, which, unlike the Barb, I definitely do want on this guy at some point. But right now, I think I will stash this and keep the Twitch on for the IAS. So until now, I had pretty much found everything I could have wanted from normal Mephisto, including some things I didn't even consider, like Steel Clash, but the two items I really wanted were still missing. Finally, I found Saigon's Great Helm from the kind little soul called Mephisto. This thing on its own is pretty trash honestly, but it provides a solid 2-piece bonus with another item. That set item is not a set amulet, but I didn't even know that this set amulet could even drop from Mephisto. Guess you learn something new every day. Then finally, after like 2.5 or 3 hours of solid grinding, I was able to find these set gauntlets I was after, Saigon's Gauge. These themselves are pretty trash too, but again, with the helm they give me a nice 2-piece set bonus of 30% increased attack speed on the gloves and 8 to attack rating per level on the helmet, both of which are pretty huge. So after all that item finding, it was time to farm some levels. For that, my target of choice was Eldritch. I tried some Bale runs since they give more experience, but still found them to be a pain due to wave 4 and 5, so I stuck to Eldritch before moving on to Nightmare. I moved on at level 36 since at this point I could max out my next skill, Holy Freeze. I put the required points into strength and then got 65 dexterity for the additional block rate plus attack rating. For skills, I went max to Holy Freeze and found that I was one short. Whatever, level 19 is still pretty good. After that, I put 5 points into Holy Shield and dumped the rest into Zeal for attack rating. That should do me plenty for now, and I'll put more points into Resist Cold next to get my cold damage up from Holy Freeze. With that, I went to Nightmare Tristram. The build works pretty well as I was able to battle toe-to-toe with the monsters and elite packs here. That 30% IAS from the gloves really helps since I can attack super fast and thus my DPS is pretty good. Unfortunately, Griswold had other plans. I had just killed a Might Aura pack with a curse on and thus was low on HP. Also, I forgot that fire enchanted monsters explode with physical and fire damage. So yeah. RIP. It was easy to rebound though, since my Paladin is doing some pretty excellent damage and has good attack rating for the surrounding as well. I went to Nightmare Countess next because I needed some runes for some final additions to my build before I could officially start Nightmare. With all that done, I was then ready to show off my gear and my build using which I was going to take on Nightmare. First is my weapon, the Soul Mangler. Yeah, nothing special about this rare flail except that it is a pretty decent normal level weapon for what it's worth. 61% enhanced damage, 4 to maximum damage, 4 to minimum damage, 32 to attack rating, 24 to 35 fire damage, and all on a base of a flail, which is a fast attacking weapon. I am sticking with it for now till I find/build something nicer for myself in Nightmare. For bosses, I have a strength in a scimitar, which will give me 25% crushing blow, so that takes care of that. For my helmet, gloves and boots, I am using the 3-piece Saigons. The helm gives me 382 to attack rating for now, and also gives me some mana. The gloves are awesome since they give me 10 to strength and 30% increased attack speed, which is really huge. Then there are the boots. I went for these over Hisaru's since I don't really need the attack rating for now, and these provide 50 to attack rating anyways, and 50 MF, and some decent cold rest themselves, so I'll take it. My jewelry might seem like a part of a set as well, since they all provide the same attribute, Magic Find. My amulet is 34 to Magic Find. The left ring is a 15 to Nagel, but it also gives me 60 to attack rating, which I really can't complain too much about. Then my other ring is just 12 to Magic Find. Of course, the main reason that I'm using these is because I haven't found really anything better, which I would love to find, especially with some resistances, since that is something that is a pretty terrible weakness of mine. Speaking of terrible, my sharkskin belt on which I blew my imbue on. Unfortunately, I got this, but the reason I chose to imbue this in the first place was so that I can get 4 rows of potions. Yeah, this thing is good for pretty much just that now. The armor is Twitch Throw. Again, it isn't the best, but it isn't the worst either. 20% IAS, FHR, and increased chance to block are all nice attributes to get, and then you get 10 to Dex and Strength, cause why not? Like I mentioned before, something that gives me res would be preferable because my res is quite horrendous, as you can see here. All the res that I have is honestly just because of some pretty lucky charm finds I have had, where I have one giving 20 to fire res and another giving 27 to light res. I guess I skipped showing my shield, but it is a basic rhyme shield in a bone shield. Would like to replace that in a paladin shield as well. With that, my life is 530 and damage is 340 to 482. Next, just going to breeze over the skills. I have 5 points in Holy Shield. This I have come around on as some people recommended it to me and I'm enjoying it, especially with a few points in it so that it lasts for a while and gets me to max block. I also have 9 points in Zeal since it gives me a nice 90% bonus to my attack rating, which is sitting at a comfortable 1282 at the moment. My auras are pretty straightforward. 20 in Holy Freeze since that is what I use for cold damage added to my attacks, and the rest of the points go into Resist Cold to give me additional cold damage from Holy Freeze. My Merc setup is pretty straightforward as well. I have a chainmail on him with chance to cast Charge Bolt and dual res. His helmet is a bare bones Ral to patch up his weakness to fire damage, and his weapon is a strength and a pike, which is an awesome cheap weapon for a merc with lifesteal and crushing blow. All of that is great, but pit spawn in jail level 2 is still scary and was absolutely destroying me. He cast amp damage on me, and his multi-shot hits were really taking the toll on me to the point where I had to empty out my rejuvenations, and in that process he even killed my mercenary. To make up for this though, he dropped me a unique flail, which is the General's Tando Liga, which is a pretty sweet upgrade for my current weapon since it adds attack speed and some mana steal with some additional physical damage. With that, I went to kill Andariel. Much like Pitspawn, she was intent on absolutely destroying me here and killed my mercenary in the process. I think more than her, the monsters surrounding her were hurting me, so when I finally was able to create some space between me and her, I focused my attack on them. After that, Andariel came to me herself and I finished her off with my flail. As you can see, my killing speed isn't awfully slow, but it isn't the greatest thing in the world either. Of course, if I want to do magic find runs of her, I'll have to come up with a way to kill her consistently, which is much faster than this. Speaking of magic finding her, to improve her drop rate, you should do the Andariel bug if you plan to MF with her. To do that, literally all you have to do is talk to Voriv after you kill her, and that's it. To increase the MFing speed, one of the things that you could do is to, well, just find a better weapon to hit her with, and that's exactly what I did on my first run. I found two unique weapons that I could use, the unique Cudgel, which is the Dark Clan Crusher. This thing has 195 enhanced damage, 22% to bonus attack rating, and 15 to life after demon kill. The other was the Ironstone Warhammer with even more damage, 142 straight points to attack rating, and 10 to strength. Gee, that isn't a difficult choice, is it? One weapon just does more damage, gives me overall more attack rating. For sure this would have been a great addition to my arsenal, right? Unfortunately, I found out next run that this was making the overall process of killing Andariel slower. This is where you appreciate the effect of attack speed. DPS really has two elements, damage and speed, and it is clear that without one, the other's awesomeness is dragged down to mediocrity. However, my luck was on point this day and the awesome drops did not stop. Next, I found this rare balanced knife with life tap charges on it. Don't mind the fact that I sold it to Akara and had to buy it back at a higher price. This is still pretty amazing. Life tap, if you don't know, is this amazing curse which gives you life equal to 50% of the melee damage you deal, which is awesome and really helps against Andariel since you don't have to worry about your health or lack of poison resistance anymore. In fact, even if that wasn't enough, I found a unique barbed club to help my case. The Flesh Renderer or something. This thing though, it attacks fast, does more damage than my current weapon, and has 25% crushing blow, deadly strike, and open wounds built right in. G freaking G, ladies and gentlemen. That right there is a win. Now with my precious little new barbed club, doing Andy runs was a lot faster. Not only was I doing more damage and doing it faster, but I also had the oh so important crushing blow element on my side as well, which meant more magic finding and finding unique stuff like a unique ring, which turned out to be a manhold. But meh, whatever. Still, magic finding fast is pretty satisfying. Also, it leads to pretty good rewards like another unique ring, which was also a manhold. But like I said, it doesn't matter. SOJs are overrated anyways. Trust me, I've used a couple in my day. This Demonite sash is an upgrade though. I'll take that. Thank you very much. Also as an upgrade, I found a better Nagel ring from Andariel with 19% magic find, which I'll take since this will increase my attack rating as well. Using that increased attack rating and magic find, I was able to find the unique gothic shield, which is the Ward. This shield can be quite good since it can have up to 50 all resistances with increased block rate, but unfortunately mine was utter trash with only 36 to all res. Equally useless was this next drop, which was the Storm Rider. This thing had a bunch of damage on it, which I would have loved to have, but that base was way too slow for it not to be a hard pass. So, with all that Nightmare Andy farming, I reached level 50 and then I decided to move on to Act 2. Due to my farming, not only did I have awesome gear at my disposal, but also I was fairly over-leveled and overpowered for the area, which honestly feels nice when you are a melee character. I do a lot of damage and deal it consistently since my attack rating is up to par as well. Even cold immunes fall, like the worm dude in Maggot Lair or the dangerous and mighty Fangskin in the Snake Temple. I can even take on multiple enemies at once due to the defensive utility provided by Holy Shield, as it blocks a lot of physical damage. One thing it can't block though is elemental damage, and that is exactly what ended up absolutely frying me in the palace. To be fair, my fire resistance has seen better days, so I should probably be more cautious than to just charge into a bunch of monsters like that. Other than that though, the act had no major upsets until the Duriel fight. That's not to say that the fight was majorly upsetting in any way, it was just a couple of holy freezers going at each other. Except my holy freeze didn't really work and Duriel remained unfrozen during the whole fight, which is a shame. Other than that, the fight was pretty standard fare. The fact that I overcompensated on my cold res was standard. The fact that I didn't need to use as many health potions as I bought was standard. And the drops. Oh yeet, the glorious drops. Just as standard as they get. Act 3 brought a surprise though, in the form of, well, I was able to deal with the flares and most of the credit here goes to max block from my Holy Shield. Those guys are little and hit you with a lot of physical damage, but with blocking 75% of their attacks, I was able to survive a lot better in the jungle. As a bonus, I was even able to block explosions from dolls in the dungeon, though they're still always scary, so don't go toe to toe with them without rejuvenations. Other than that, I was able to dispatch everything with relative ease in the act. Travincle was a little frustrating since my mercenary kept dying, but it was still pretty doable, especially by luring out a couple of council members, and then killing them. Mephisto was pretty doable too. I went into this fight not knowing what to expect, so I didn't take my life tap balanced knife with me, and for the beginning it felt like I wouldn't need it. But then Mephisto launched his charge bolt straight into my face and almost made me lose half my manhood, so I started to second guess my decision. It was all good in the end though, since that was the only time he pulled that shenanigan and I was able to finish him off. Though I did miss a lot of hits here, which showed holes in my attack rating. He dropped a very interesting unique though, in the form of Lidless. The special thing about this is that it has pretty good block rate and +1 to skills, which will add a significant amount of damage to my attacks. However, I would have to give up on my Cannot Be Frozen and 25 all resistances from Rhyme, so I think I'll pass. I didn't yet pass on Mephisto though, since he was going to be my farming spot till level 60. As I said earlier, he was making me miss a lot, which is an indication enough that my levels have started to fall behind. And since chance to hit depends on attack rating and your level as well, I decided to do some Mephisto runs to level up. While magic fighting, first good drop from him was Alder's Mace. Now this could have been pretty interesting if it had Crushing Blow, or if the set bonuses were, I don't know, at all useful, but alas, none of those things were the case. Similar was the story with these gloves, Magus Skin. They're decent on their own, but nothing special, and the set rewards literally nothing except for 150% attack rating bonus with 2 items, which is absolutely not good enough since I need straight attack rating bonuses instead. One find that is legit awesome for all melee characters is Tal Rasha's Horadric Crest. 10% dual leech, 60 to life, 30 to mana, and 15 on resistances. Holy moly, this would have been an amazing find for the barbarian. With this guy though, I think life tap puts in much more work, since the crazy leech from that makes up for the lack of my physical damage, so this might not be the call going forward, but I'll still keep it. Next, I found Hand of the Blessed Light. Oh yeah. This unique Divine Scepter gives 2 to Paladin skills, enhanced damage, and bonus to attack rating. The actual roll on the enhanced damage is pretty bad, since it can go from 130 to 160, but still, I think it will be a viable upgrade from my current weapon, especially when not fighting bosses and when I don't really need that crushing blow. Next I found Nokuzun's Relic, which is just an all-around solid find since it sorts out my fire resistance problem that I was having earlier, and it gives me some extra FHR, which is always nice. Then after a long dry patch, I finally found something useful, which was the unique ghost armor, that being the Spirit Shroud. I'm not going to lie, one of the first times I ever even thought about building this character, I really wish to find this for him because it is such a good fit. +1 to all skills and cannot be frozen, 2 of the most important things that a holy Zealer needs, and I got them both in one slot. I am now a happy man. My Zealer though was a level 60 man now and was ready to take on Act 4. Now I was using my shiny new scepter that I had found, and the increased attack speed and damage was pretty much wrecking everything in sight. The only monsters that I had trouble with were the things that had both resistances to cold and physical damage, but even then, these guys don't do much damage and the 10% leech from Saigons was proving enough here. With that, I was pretty easily able to defeat Hephasto, the armorer guy, and the thugs he had around him. Fitting then that the reward I got was pretty trash from the Hellforge in the form of a Saul rune. Well, that does make me Saul T, shall I say? Or I shouldn't, since that's a terrible joke, but I gotta move on and make my way to the chaos. Even here, I was able to wreck most things. Infector and group didn't pose a problem, and neither did any of the other lesser evils, since I was able to dispatch them all in strong and quick fashion. The one fight that surprised me though was Diablo. With the combined powers of mine and my mercenaries' crushing blow, we were able to defeat the big red lizard, honestly way quicker than I had anticipated. It helps that he stuck to using his lightning hose attack for the most part, which does no damage since the animation starts a little way out. He dropped 3 uniques, on which I pretty much instantly rolled my eyes, going, ugh, of course, he wouldn't drop me anything useful now, would he? But then I identified the unique Yari, and it turned out to be a freaking Hone Sudan. 45% crushing blow with 3 sockets and amazing damage. Well, that is definitely better than nothing useful, to say the least, and I'll take it with open arms. The damage from my Paladin and Mercenary carried on through to Act 5. Here I was killing cold immune monsters like these wine witches with ease. Granted, they don't do much damage and aren't really all that bulky, so a better example would be Frozenstein and his mob pack, who also went down with relative ease. Nilithak was scary though, since in Nightmare, monsters have a lot of health and therefore, Corpse Explosion could do major damage. However, I didn't let him get off that many corpse explosions and potentially block them as well, while constantly hammering at him and getting the kill. Oh, and also poison snakes. Still freaking hate these things. You know what they say though, no pain, no gain. And while recovering from the pain of these guys' attacks, I gained some excellent set bramble mitts in the glacial trail. Laying of hands. These are the quintessential melee gloves of Diablo 2. 20% increased attack speed, 350% damage to demons, and 50 fire res. If I ever get out of the loop of Saigon's pieces, I would most definitely use these. Another scary fight that I had to face next though was the Ancients. Don't know why I always overestimate their power and over-prepare for them, but because of that, I guess, this fight went with relative ease. I planned to target Talik first with Life Tap and Zeal, but Korlik just rudely came and stood in front of me, so he took the worst of the beating. Meanwhile, my mercenary just teed off on Madoc, who was annoying me with the occasional mana burn hit. Overall, this fight was pretty easy since I was able to finish off Korlik. Madoc was pretty much left at 1 HP by my mercenary, and then we both teamed up to take down Talik. To my surprise, this domination carried over to the throne. As you can see, I was able to deal pretty well with wave 4 here. The defensive capabilities of Holy Freeze slowing things down was coming in handy, and even wave 5, which had a cold immune lister, was really not that much of a problem. Man, our holy friend has come a long way since his garbage holy fire days. Bale was actually a pretty fast kill too, especially with all the crushing blow flying around. Hone Sedan is one of the best mercenary weapons I could have found because that 45% crushing blow absolutely crushes Bale, and thus I'm able to finish him off rather quickly. Pretty handy since, you guessed it, he was going to be my next farming spot till level 70. I didn't really find anything here of notice other than Saigon's belt, I guess, which I had not found up to this point somehow, and it turned out to be marginally better than my current one, so I kept it. Other than that, I just ran Bale till level 70, and it didn't take long since I was constantly killing boss packs in the throne and Worldstone as well. After that, I went to Lower Kurist with the goal to get a decent amount of gold and a decent shield base to improve my resistances in Hell. With the gold I mentioned before, I gambled rings and amulets from Anya to get some more resistances and some cheeky skills if I get lucky. After finding a decent Paladin shield with high resistances on its base, I went to Lazark to add sockets to it and got 4 perfect diamonds in it for massive resistances. Then while I was in normal, I used my respec to get ready for Hell with Holy Shock. And then there was Hell. Oh boy. Where I got destroyed in Bloodmoor by a Might or a zombie pack. But thinking that that was just a mishap, I bounced back, and then I got destroyed by Corpse Fire. But that wasn't enough to crush my spirits, so I went at it again, and then got destroyed by Blood Raven. Yeah, you started to see a pattern here. Somehow, by grinding and taking it ever so slow and trying to level up as much as possible, I got to the tower. Thankfully, the monsters in here weren't going to disappoint me by, not providing another clip for the doing this character with self-found gear sucks montage. Yeah, you may have guessed it, that this is where the gears in my head turned and I decided to create the sorceress. That my magic find blizzard sorceress. Yup, this paladin was created back in October and it had to wait through my sorceress and her magic finding and also plans for 2020 before finally I could be ready with the build that I think is going to take on Hell and do well. So in the next clip you're going to see this exact character be completely changed using only one piece of equipment that I borrowed from my sorceress. Now the one item of choice for this Holy Shock Paladin won't be a shock to anyone who has watched my previous two videos, the lovely Exile. If I would have found actual usable Drax, this wouldn't be here, but hey, such is this game and its RNG, so be it. Now this shield is great. Of course it has the highlight stat of the 15% chance to cast level 5 life tap on striking, which is the primary reason that it even exists. Life tap for this guy is super important since most of my damage comes from my elemental skills, but with life tap you can leech a lot from melee damage, even if your melee damage is subpar, like this guy. Oh, and the leech is good. Very good. If you don't know, you'll soon see. Next, the shield also has level 14 Defiance aura. This can roll from level 13 to 16 and it basically gives you a defense boost which actually does something, believe it or not. Next it gives +2 to offensive auras, great, that increases my Holy Shock damage, and then it gives faster block rate, some more enhanced defense, and then some honestly disappointing resistances. That is one of the problems that I faced with this guy when I put this shield on him was to get resistances, but we'll get to that. Rounding the shield off is another great stat of automatic repairing, which allows me to build it in an ethereal base. Pretty much the best item I have wielded in a game of Diablo 2 and I am stoked to use it. Now this I obviously took from my sorceress, but the rest of the stuff on this guy is self-found. I wanted to limit the hand down to only one item to still keep the character familiar. If I would have gone the whole 9 yards and passed down Raven Frosts and Metal Grid and Endarials, I might as well start playing a different character at that point, innit? It wouldn't have been fun, whereas with this, I get to keep my mini playthrough still mostly consistent, but avoid the hassles to farm particular niche required items like a life tap source in this case. So moving on to the headgear. Shaco. Yeah, this was a really lucky find and I found this from the tower. I was testing the Exile out and it turns out that the Istrune in it put in work and I found this great helm. Now, is it best in slot? Probably not. Given the situation of my gear, I would have much preferred a Kira's, but I am not going to say no to the second Shaco I have ever found, right? +2 to skills, +2 to attributes, huge mana and life bonus, 10% damage reduced, and 50% magic find. GG boys, GG. And you know the great thing about magic find, right? You get a chance to find some more awesome stuff like the unique Scourge Horizon's Tornado. Now for the longest time I was using the good old Hand of the Blessed Light, and to be fair it was pretty good for what it was. I upped it to a Caduceus to get more damage out of it and even put a Shield Rune in it, but in the end it was just too slow. Thus I went down to the pits to farm for a better item and that's where I found this. Sure, I had a chance at Stormlash as well, but I still like this because A, it has got the hipster factor since it is often overlooked by Stormlash, B, it has more attack speed than Stormlash, which is exactly what I need, and C, this is just a good overall weapon. Decent damage, chance to cast Tornado, which also actually does something. Good attack speed, so you will be casting Life Tap quite often, and finally slows target by 20%. Trust me, combine this with the Holy Freeze from the Mercenary, that can be very useful to incapacitate your enemies. Moving along on the list of good finds on this guy are some Laying of Hands. These are so basic but so good at the same time. 20% increased attack speed and 50 fire res. Yeah, pretty much deal with two of the most important issues of my character. Brilliant item. My belt is still Saigon's. I was using the 4-piece set before and now this is the only one that still remains because It is a pretty decent belt with life, fire resistance, and the ability to give me 4 rows of potions. My boots are utilitarian as well, 20 faster run walk with 29% lightning resistance. Speaking of resistances, since my shield gives me so little, I had to focus all my jewelry on it, so my amulet gives me 19 to all resistances, my right ring gives me 25 cold resistance with some energy, and then finally my left ring gives me 13 to all resistances with some energy as well. Charms are something I have been lucky with since I found quite a few decent ones with attack rating, and they are really important since I am not wearing Angelics or Ravenfrosts to compensate for my chance to hit. I also found this little thing. Actually, it is not little, but it is like a poor man's demon limb with level 10 enchant charges. This helps attack rating a lot as well. Without the enchant proc, I have 4.4k attack rating, and with the enchant, it bumps it up to 5.8k. Pretty good. Now, while we are here talking about attack rating, I guess I should mention my stats as well. Now for this guy, I put the minimum strength required for the gear as always. Then I only put enough points into vitality to get up to 800 life. That is where I called it and then dumped the rest of the points into dexterity. This in turns helps both get my attack rating or my ability to hit monsters up, and my defense and block rate, which as you can see with Holy Shield active is 75%, which is more commonly referred to as max block. Besides that, in my stash I also have the runes Shale on Tier, which make the rune word Crescent Moon. That is one of the best weapons I can build for this guy, but unfortunately I haven't found a good enough base yet, which is basically a 3-socketed phase blade, so I am just letting these runes sit here. Meanwhile, I also found 3 skillers on this guy. First was a Warcry skiller for the Barbarian. Next was the first skiller I found with life, and of course it turned out to be +1 to masteries for the Barbarian. Now while I was whining over that, I also found another one with 13 to life, but this one gives +1 to summoning skills. So I guess that makes everything alright. Speaking of skills, my skill tree is pretty basic. I have maxed out zeal since obviously I am a zealer, and this increases my physical damage and attack rating, which is essential. I only have 1 point in Holy Shield since I don't really need any more for max block since I have a lot of dexterity invested anyways. The duration is a little short, but I can just cast it again when it runs out. The aura of choice should not shock you, but hopefully should shock all of my enemies. So I maxed that out, and I also maxed Resist Lightning, which is a synergy of Holy Shock. Then I dumped the rest of the points into Sacrifice because that increases the physical damage my Zeal attack does. There's just a couple more things I left out. First is the Mercenary. Now he's wearing my all-time favorite single player armor for any mercenary, which is Treachery. I honestly hope that my Paladin could wear it soon, since it is just an excellent armor with a lot of attack speed and the Fade proc, which my Mercenary has on right now, which gives him mad resistances and damage reduction. I, however, am stuck with the Spirit Shroud because it is the only item I have where the source of cannot be frozen, unfortunately. Whatever though, it helps that it also has +1 to skills since it adds to my damage, and honestly I was very happy when I first found it, like probably 10 minutes ago in the mini playthrough, so I'm not going to grumble that much. The Mercenary should not grumble either since his gear is pretty solid, with Tal Rasha's mask providing him 10% life leech and all res, and a Hon Sudan with 2 shields, 1 am and 45% crushing blow. I have been really enjoying this setup on him since he does a lot of damage and leeches back a lot of life as well. Too bad that he acts like an idiot in a fight like Andariel's and just loves to go forth and stand in the middle of danger, and I have to focus on him to save his life and land myself in a right mess in the process. Yeah, this fight was pretty sloppy, but honestly also showcases the strengths of this guy. Unlike the Amazon, I can actually deal with lightning immunes due to the physical damage provided by my weapon and the fact that I have pumped a fair amount of points into sacrifice. If anything, lightning immunes kind of help me since my chance to hit these guys is higher than Andariel, and thus I am able to leech off of them while trying to fight off Andy. The lack of crushing blow or static field though doesn't help me. Something like Crescent Moon or Stormlash would have really shown in boss fights, and it really shows in this fight, and the fact that my mercenary died early only amplifies it. But the damage that my guy outputs is still pretty respectable, and eventually, with the help of a couple of rejuvenations, I was able to take down Andariel. Now I said that you can take down lightning immunes, but it isn't particularly a tourist activity I would recommend that you partake in, yeah, because it can be pretty grindy. Still, having a mercenary like mine with Holy Freeze helps defensively against them, and the Hone Sedan in his hand helps offensively as well. In the Maggot layer, this problem is much more prominent since you kinda have to kill lightning immunes here, but I still didn't want to since it takes ages. Unfortunately, you know what they say, speedy trips lead to rips, and that's kinda what happened here. I mean, Might Aura may have had something to do with it as well, but going in slow and steady proved to be much more fruitful as I was able to grind through this place. I was hoping that the Arcane would be much more of a friendlier place since it doesn't have any natural lightning immunes, but Might Aura is still Might Aura no matter where it is, and often leads to the same end result as well. With that and many other great lessons learned, I reached Tal Rasha's tomb looking for Duriel. Now this fight was easy peasy. As you probably caught in the last clip, I was running out of money to resurrect my mercenary, and therefore I had to be careful to keep him alive throughout and hopefully get some money from the drops as well. Life tap helped a lot here with the former. This fight was way different than Andariel because Duriel doesn't really pose that much of a threat to my mercenary, especially when life tap and crushing blow from his Hone Sedan come into the picture. With that and the respectable lightning damage from my Paladin, we were able to take down Duriel without any problem. The only problem was gold, which I wasn't really able to make from this fight. I guess I'll have to search for it in the next act. Now Act 3 Hill is generally a meltdown act for me, but my Tesladin handles it quite well. Unlike my Sorceress or the Zon, I have physical damage to deal with lightning immune flares, and more importantly, I have life tap, which makes things look as easy as they do. Still, after the longest flare jungle that I have ever faced, or so it seemed, I finally reached Lower Kurist. This is a good retirement spot for my hell characters and myself as well to just take a break from the journey and get some gold that will help us throughout the rest of it. Here I got myself up to 2 million gold because I had to repair both my teleport staff and my enchant sword constantly, and thus I thought I needed the extra cash, and then I moved on. On to Travancore. Now here I was hoping that if I could cast life tap quickly on the council members, that my mercenary could leech from him and not die to the hydras. Life tap does have a pretty good chance to cast at 15% from the exile and with good attack speed, but it is still a probability game and can't really be relied on. Unfortunately so for my mercenary. Even without him though, I dealt with all of the council members. I mean, this scene itself should pretty much sum up my thoughts about the power of life tap. Damage flying in from everywhere, but my pally is still sitting at full health, no problem. That's why we love it, ladies and gentlemen. Then came Mephisto. Honestly, Andariel was the only boss that gave my paladin any trouble, as even Mephisto, with his crazy elemental damage that makes everyone shiver, and for good reason, Lifetab did a good job neutralizing almost all of his attacks. Unlike Duriel though, he was able to kill my mercenary and thus take away my source of crushing blow, which was a bummer, but that's about all that was bad. My Tesladin still does good damage and it shows. Maybe it's the 350% enhanced damage to demons from laying of hands coming into play, or just the sheer power of lightning damage, but he always does end up doing a lot better against bosses than I expect him to. Well, with that, Mephisto went down as well. He didn't drop anything of value or interest to me, but that's okay since I think I was pretty set both gold-wise and gear-wise. Or at least that's what I thought going into Act 4, but I guess I was wrong. My gear was falling back and things were anything but okay. With the increase in difficulties, monsters had more health and they did more damage, and thus deaths started to roll in much more often. Not to mention souls. Yeah, I reset the maps as soon as I saw them because not only do they do insane amounts of damage, but they're also lightning immune and highly physically resistant due to being undead, so I couldn't really do anything to them anyways. Izzy was surprisingly easy though. Generally I consider him to be like any other boss because he does have high health as compared to other monsters, but honestly by the time I thought about teleporting my mercenary onto him to get some crushing blows, my paladin had already killed him, all on his own. Goes to show that lightning damage from Holy Shock is quite impressive if you don't account for high enemy resistances and immunities. Unfortunately, that is not how things work in the realm of Diablo, and this example of Chaos Sanctuary is case in point. Now you might be thinking that the CS shouldn't have been that much of a problem since the only lightning immunes in here are the floaty ghost dudes and they don't really do a lot of damage. Well, you would be correct, however, it was my resistances that were letting me down. The various flavors of elemental damage from the necromages only amplified by the infernos of the infector pack, and my mercenary and paladin were soon toast served at a little English breakfast. To fix this little problem of mine, I borrowed my mercenary's treachery and used the good old stand in the fire till you get faded trick. As you can see, with Fade I have excellent resistances and some pretty decent damage reduction as well. Even still, Chaos Sanctuary was no cakewalk. This is why I mostly prefer casters to most melee characters in Diablo 2. Due to their characteristic nature, melee characters are often forced to get uncomfortably close to the action, and without excellent gear, doing that with some of the toughest monsters in the game can be very difficult. Thankfully I have good gear, and by that I mean my exile. Yup, there's no hiding how that item is literally carrying me through these stages of the game. Imagine, all this was this hard with the exile, where would I be without it? Well, with it though, I found myself fighting Lord Decice and his minions. I was kind of underestimating their bulk and their power till this happened. Yeah, okay. Maybe it is better if we drag the minions out one by one till they're out of the range of Decice's fanaticism, and then killing them will be easier. After that, their leader is helpless and can be easily double teamed as such. Grand Vizier, yeah, even though being guaranteed lightning immune, is still Grand Vizier. As long he's not physical immune or goes and pulls a miracle to kill you like he did earlier, he's kind of a little break from the action that the good blokes at Blizzard put in before Diablo. Diablo was actually super easy as well. My mercenary put in some valuable crushing blows in the beginning before he went down to one of Diablo's firestorm attacks. Even after, my paladin continued to surprise me by doing very well against demons, and Diablo is no exception. He was able to survive with the aid of life tap, of course, and hit Diablo with some respectable attack rating. The drops were no sight to behold, though same old crap. Speaking of crap, shit was about to get real since it was Act 5 hell time. Everything that moves wants to kill you and will kill you, if you're not careful enough. Shank is an exception though, since his minions really have no area of effect, and their melee attacks themselves are pretty slow and ineffective. You would have to get a really unlucky roll to die from Shank, but I didn't and I was able to down him easily. The easy stopped there because the frozen river was up next. I got pretty lucky with my first roll since I had no souls, but to my dismay, I threw it away because of this boss pack of herpes. They can be vicious, to be honest. The little balls they shoot do a lot of damage, and with a curse, it can rack up quick, as you saw there. It took me quite a while to get a good enough roll again to do the Anya quest there, and then I went down to nil attack. Here I had to reset once due to poison snakes, which are also lightning immune. Brilliant. But overall, the plan here consisted of getting up close to nil attack to smack him before he can explode any corpses. Another way to stop his corpse explosion is you have a point in redemption. That's a great skill, and it redeems corpses and regenerates your life and mana so that nil attack can then not explode them. Unfortunately, I did not have a point in it, but it is definitely something to consider. Something else to consider was also how my mercenary died right before I reached the Ancients. That actually proved to be good for me, since with him, separating these guys can be a pain, since he likes to wander off from the corner and ruin the positioning. Without him, I was able to get them separated using the corner trick pretty easily, and speaking of easy, yeah, I didn't really have to do much in this fight. From here, life tap cast, which took care of my paladin's health, and thus I pretty much had the freedom of keeping a paperweight on my mouse button. I used my spectacle case, and then I guess you can just leave the computer and do something else in your life. Like, I don't know, going outside. Yeah, I know. My jokes are getting pretty good. Going outside. Right. But really though, things just sorted themselves out in this fight. The Talic fight was slow since he was stone skin, but Korlik's fight was really fast since he was both cursed and mana burn. This meant that if I did not have enough mana to use zeal against him, he could easily chain attacks and kill me before I could leech back the damage. Therefore, I had to be on point and drinking mana and rejuvenations as required till he went down. After that, I waited for the curse to go away since I didn't want to face Maddock with it, obviously. Maddock himself was magic resistant and extra fast, so there was nothing much to worry about, but he was just annoying since he kept running away from me till I backed him into a corner. From here, I could yet again just paperweight the mouse button and enjoy the beautiful scenery of the world. The Diablo world, that is. Look at how pretty this side of Mount Ariat looks with frigid highlands visible on the left. Given that this game is nearly 20 years old, it sure does look beautiful. Scream loudly if you agree, Maddock. Yup, there we go. And thus we go into the World Stone. Rather, we look at what it was like getting to it. It took me about an hour of resetting monster rolls to get through here, since there were two types of monsters in particular that were kicking my ass. Death Lords, because they're Death Lords, and Black Souls, because they're Black Souls. Yeah. Finally, when I was able to get there, I was able to face the Bale Waves. Wave 2 was going to be a problem for me since my poison res was not so great, and therefore I borrowed my mercenary's treachery again and buffed myself before I went after them. Treachery really is a great item, since even when I'm not wearing it, I can still reap the benefits of having it built for my mercenary. I use the resistances for the upcoming waves as well, bar Lister. Now look, I was going to face him and attempt to take him down as well, but he was lightning enchanted, and I didn't really have 2 more hours to spare while I died to him, and then I had to do the whole throne room again. So eventually I bailed on him and went straight to Baal. Now he was in quite a mood though. Not having any of my nonsense, he just straight up murdered me. I blame the lack of attack rating here. That was honestly one of the more annoying things about this whole experience. Not having enough attack rating and thus not getting the chance to cast life tap and then eventually dying. However, like I said, if this was this difficult with life tap, imagine where I would be without it. It probably still would have been possible with something like a life tap wand. I mean, I tried that in the beginning and it was definitely tougher. I definitely don't want to imagine what a chaos run with that would look like, and thus I decided to pass down one item to this guy. Let me know if that is something that bothered you, or if that's something you're cool with and you want me to continue. I personally think that one item still retains the challenge of beating the game with the stuff that you find along the way, but also makes things that would just be a pain in the ass a lot easier to deal with. So yeah, that was the Holy Paladin. Hope you find this content riveting. Yours truly, with love.